Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to warmly welcome you to the 5th public lecture of Corona College of Education. Topic today is Education for Self-Reliance in Nigeria, Placebo. I am Peter Obenta. I'll be your moderator for this event. Before we commence into the day's activity, I'd want to encourage each and every one of us to endeavor to be muted throughout the program. Also, you can turn on your video camera, but ensure that your mic is muted. There'll be a segment for questions and answers. We can allow you to speak, but you need to indicate by raising up your virtual hand. And other instructions will be given as we proceed in the lecture this morning. Corona College of Education is a tertiary arm of Corona Schools Trust Council. The Corona Schools Trust Council established Corona College of Education in 2014 with the goal of raising a new breed of teachers for the Nigerian education sector. The college is accredited by the National Commission for Colleges of Education to run the Nigeria Certificate in Education. Also, the college is accredited by the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria to mount the Professional Diploma in Education. The college has other postgraduate diploma programs for first degree holders, such as the Professional Diploma in Education. We have Professional Diploma in Early Childhood Care and Education. We have the Advanced Diploma in Educational Leadership and Management, as well as other short duration courses spearheaded by the Corona College of Education Consult for continuous teachers' professional development. Very specially, I would like to recognize our host who has provided this platform to discuss pertinent issues, share ideas, and interact on academic and professional levels since 2021, when the first public lecture commenced. Join me to recognize the chairman, Corona College of Education Governing Council, Dr. Alero Roberts, the CEO, Corona Schools Trust Council, Mrs. Adeyoyin Adeshina, the Provost, Corona College of Education, Dr. Olajumoke Mekiluwa. We'll go straight into the national anthem. Immediately after the national anthem, we'll take the school anthem. Please join us to sing along as these both anthems are displayed on your devices. Thank you. Thank you all for reciting and singing the school anthem along with us. Very special, I want you to do us a short favor. The program is currently being streamed on YouTube and Zoom. You can do well to share the link to your friends, tell somebody in academia, tell somebody in your office. There's a program going on in Corona College of Education now, which will be a benefit to them. Kindly do well to tweet it on your social media accounts, your WhatsApp. Please do well to update your status. We are about to go into the program proper. Thank you. I would like to invite the Training and Development Manager, Corona College of Education Consult, the person of Mrs. Nora Jagede for the opening prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Obenta. Shall we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for today. It is the day that you have made, and we rejoice and we are glad in it. Thank you, Father, Lord, because you.
Hello, good morning. Madam, how are you?
In all that we do. You have taken charge of the speaker. You have taken charge of everyone that is going to contribute to today's theme. Thank you, Lord, because at the end of today, we will be able to contribute better to our society, making our society and our nation better than we met it. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, Mr. Peter.
Thank you very much, Ma, for that concise prayers. Please, I would like to admonish each and every one of us to kindly turn off our mic throughout the program. Please, unless you've been called upon to speak, please endeavor your mic is muted. We don't want any interruption during the course of this live broadcast. Thank you all for that. I would want to welcome the Provost, Corona College of Education, for our welcome address.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obenta, for anchoring this event so far. Here is my welcome address on the occasion of the 5th public lecture organized by Corona College of Education in Ilupeju, Lagos. Today, Thursday, November 10, 2022. The chairman of the occasion, who is also the chairman of the College Governing Council, Dr. Alero Roberts, the distinguished guest lecturer, Dr. Peter Bankole, members of the College Governing Council, Corona College of Education. I can see already Dr. Tunde Lawal has connected to this event. You're welcome and recognized, sir. The Chief Executive Officer, Corona Schools Trust Council, Mrs. Adeyoye Adeshino. The college management here present, the registrar of the college, Mrs. John, the bossa of the college, Mr. Adewale Shuremi, who is already connected as well, the deans of schools, and the Dean of Student Affairs, Mr. Modi, Mr. Taylor, and every other person, distinguished guests who have already logged in, staff and students, Corona College of Education, gentlemen of the press. I am told there are no ladies in the press. They are always gentlemen of the press. Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome you once again to the 5th in the series of the college public lectures. The public lectures have become part of the academic traditions of CSED. And the intention of the college is to generate a series of discourses revolving around issues in education in Nigeria today. We do not only want to discuss these issues, but we expect that solutions will be proffered that will enable sustainable change in the sector today. We all agree that education in Nigeria today needs a lot of rescue from all stakeholders. The lecture series started sometime in April 2021, when the college hosted distinguished Professor Peter Okebukola to the inaugural lecture, themed Quality, Standards, and Curriculum Delivery in Tertiary Education in the COVID-19 era. Beyond that, we have also received other guest lecturers, such as Professor Egosa Osage, the current Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, who explored the very germane topic emergent security issues in Nigeria, the facts, the puzzles, and the remedies for the education sector. Coincidentally, we have with us today Dr. Peter Bankole, who is a lecturer at the same university as one of our previous lecturers, in the person of Professor Enase Okonedo, the current Vice Chancellor of Pan-Atlantic University, Lagos. At the lecture which she delivered, her topic was Town and Gown Synergy, Bridging the Gap Between Theory and Practice. As I mentioned, today's lecturer is also from Pan-Atlantic University. The topic for today's lecture is Education for Self-Reliance, a placebo. Already, the topic poses a question that we expect that the guest lecturer will thoroughly interrogate. We must determine at today's forum if Nigeria indeed has a system of education that can transform today's youth from dependents, people who are looking onto parents for dole-outs, who are looking to government to settle them after graduation with jobs. Can we transform this youth from this kind of attitude and mindset, transforming them into self-reliant individuals with an entrepreneurial spirit, citizens who can contribute meaningfully to the society? Distinguished guests, before I conclude the speech, let me once again recognize and welcome every guest who has joined us from the academia, from our regulatory bodies, from sister institutions, school heads and proprietors, students and staff of the college, members of the council, members of the trust council, members of the governing board. As soon as we see any of you in the chat room, we will appropriately introduce you. Thank you for joining the event. And finally, let me appreciate as well the local organizing committee members and the chairman of the LOC, Mrs. Edith Omosun. Thank you for a job well done. Thank you for putting this together. To all participants, I welcome you once again, and I wish you happy listening. God bless, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Madam Provost, for that keenly drafted masterpiece that has stimulated my curiosity as a scholar. And I believe our participants this morning share a similar view with me. I would like to make welcome the chairman, Corona College of Education Governing Council, Dr. Alero Roberts, for our opening remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Permit me to stand on the already established protocol. It is my pleasure to give these opening remarks at the 5th edition of the Corona College of Education Public Lecture Series. The Governing Council of the college is very elated with the feedback from the previous editions of this lofty initiative by the college management. Today's lecture is quite laudable and in consonance with the current realities of the ideals and values of our educational system in Nigeria. Indeed, I find the lecture topic, Education for Self-Reliance in Nigeria, a Placebo, a very fascinating one. According to Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, education for self-reliance must liberate citizens in order to encourage them to rely on their own growth and development, as well as reach their full potential. From his viewpoint, it is a functionally oriented education aimed at providing practical solutions to societal needs. This type of education emphasizes self-dependence, carefully balanced with the need to serve society. It emphasizes work by everybody and exploitation or manipulation by nobody. Sadly, however, the celebration of quick and ill-gotten gains, as well as other societal ills, have made some of our enterprising youth lose hope in education, which they have labeled a scam. It is therefore pertinent as stakeholders in education to re-examine the values of our educational system with a view to surmounting the current societal challenges. The tacit questions one is tempted to ask this question are these. Have the lofty ideals of self-reliant education been achieved in Nigeria? If so, why do our youth still rely heavily on government to support and sustain their aspirations and chart their way forward? Or has Nigeria's goal of offering a self-reliant education become a mere placebo, meant to pacify and humor its citizens while having no real effects on the nation's growth and development? How do we instill the core values of independence, self-awareness, creativity, and focus in today's youth? Given the choice of our guest lecturer this morning in the person of Dr. Peter Bankole and his pedigree as the Director of Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-Atlantic University in Lagos State, I expect that more than adequate attention will be paid to thoroughly interrogate the topic and the salient questions it raises. Ladies and gentlemen, at the close of today's event, I sincerely pray our educational system as a nation will be enriched by the discourse here today. And on this note, I declare this public lecture open and wish all attendees very fruitful deliberations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ma, for that comprehensive remarks that covers the essence of a program like this. During the course of the remarks by the Chairman Governing Council, a member of the Corona College of Education Governing Council came online to join the program in the person of Professor Samuel Odewumi. Professor Samuel is a professor at the Lagos State University of Science of Technology and Lagos State University of Science and Technology, I beg your pardon. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. I would like to recognize principal officers of the college, the person of very distinguished persons, starting with the registrar, Corona College of Education, Mrs. Joan Omole. We have in our midst this morning the Dean, School of Education, Mr. Augustine Modi. We have the Dean, Student Affairs, Mr. Tela Opeolu. We have the Bossa, Mr. Adewale Shoremi. We have the Head of Consults, Mrs. Adenike Onofeso. We have the college librarian, it was this morning, Mr. Wide Abudu, as well as other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, academians who have joined us, which we'll do well to recognize as we proceed in the program this morning. I would like to encourage everyone to please get your writing materials or what you need for the lecture, which is about to commence. Please keep them by your side. All questions should kindly be sent to the chat box. We'll get into that segment very shortly, and we'll take all the questions and address them one at a time. Please do also send all your questions to the chat box, and please endeavor to keep your mic muted because we're about to go into the lecture proper. I would like to call the local organizing chairperson in the person of Mrs. Edith Omosun to take the citation of the guest lecturer.
Thank you, Mr. Obenta. Good morning, everyone. Citation for our guest speaker, Dr. Peter Bankole. Dr. Peter Bankole pioneered the Enterprise Development Center, EDC, of the Pan-Atlantic University in January 2003, now one of the top enterprise development centers in Africa, and a model which has been replicated in 4 African countries, Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania. Ghana, Kenya, and Rwanda. As the director of the center, he is responsible for the overall program development, capacity building, and support services to entrepreneurs. Trained as a mechanical engineer in the UK under the British Petroleum Scholarship with an MBA from IESE Business School in Spain, and alumnus of Lagos Business School Chief Executive Program. His 3 years cognate experience spanned both the private and the public sectors, oil industry, water supply, and education. He led the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women Initiative in Nigeria and was a consultant to the project in Liberia. He initiated and led several partnership programs with diverse stakeholders, such as the MasterCard Foundation, Oxfam, Development Bank of Nigeria, DBN, British Council, Etisalat, Federal Government of Nigeria, Diamond Bank, Stanbic IBTC Bank, Access Bank, MTN, and the Coca-Cola African Foundation. A certified Learning and Performance Institute trainer and master trainer, Dr. Bankole consults widely in Sub-Saharan Africa on entrepreneurship development and practice. is a member of the University Management Council, served on the National Council on MSME and the Youth Learning Advisory Committee of the MasterCard Foundation Canada. He chairs the advisory board of both International Breweries Foundation and Nigeria Climate Innovation Center, NCIC. Also serves on several boards, including NOVER and the Lagos State Science and Research Innovation Council. Dr. Bankole received the 2017 Member of the Year Award from Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs, ANDE. He was also the recipient of the 2017 Alumni of the Year Award from Lagos Business School. In November 2018, Dr. Peter Bankole was conferred with the Fellowship of the Society for Corporate Governance, Nigeria. The current interest is designing new learning methods and e-support for SMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, make welcome with me, Dr. Peter Bankole.
Good morning, and thank you so much for that fairly long citation. I must indeed start by thanking Edith. I know it's been a struggle trying to reach me, that there's so many engagements, but once we give our word, and God helping us, we always will make it. So Graham delivered all your messages, and he was laughing that you were too worried, but we were calm. Let me start by thanking the entire governing board of the college, led by Dr. Alero Peters, Roberts, and the entire council members. You're doing a fantastic job, and I think it is very important that this kind of conversation should continue, because our educational system must be done in a very systematic way, and so that each and every one of us should also be able, I don't know, my bandwidth seems to have, okay, anyway, we will. I hope you can still see me, that's good.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Also, I have special support for Corona for many reasons. All my children went to Corona one time or the other, and of course that's where myself and the CEO, of course, were very close at many levels, and so I always will come for any event at any cost for Corona. So they've all graduated, they're all working, so you must have done something really nice at that level. So thank you for that invitation and for what you are doing. I'm going to try and make this as interactive as I can. So let me start by sharing my slide. And from time to time, I probably will ask you, the audience, to put some things in the chat box. So that way it helps me to gauge the temperature in the house, and also how I react to those questions. So the first thing is for me to understand what is our own understanding of this topic, education for self-reliance in Nigeria, the placebo. And I'm glad that the chairman and council already started quoting some of our, distinguished forefathers in this area. So if you may, in the chat box, just put in the chat box, what's your own opinion? In fact, let's make it as simple as possible. Is it a placebo? Is it not a placebo? If it's a placebo, just put yes. If it's not, just put no. That makes it easier for me, and we can quickly do this quick temperature check. So in your own opinion, do you think that, okay, Abayomi say yes, it's a placebo. Okay, Nora, yes, it's a placebo. No. Okay, so now we are beginning to have divided outcomes. That's good. So keep it coming, and then difficult to answer. All right. Now, we will see. Hopefully, by the time I share some of my thoughts, then we will ask the question again. And hopefully, we may have convergence in terms of opinion. I will ask the host, if you may, please keep a watch on the people. There are some people unknowingly, their microphone just come up. If you may, please continuously mute them so that it is easier for us to go through. Okay, so the way it works is not to mute everybody, otherwise I too will not be able to be heard. Just watch. Normally the microphone that is open comes to the very top, and then you can just mute those ones rather than the presenter. Thank you very much. Okay, so for me, it is important for us to understand what placebo is, so that at the end of the day, we can appreciate what we are talking about. Placebo is very common in the medical field, especially when they are doing trials. So, and it's supposed to be like for the control group. So when, let's say you have 100 patients that you are treating, they could put 10%, for instance, as placebo, which means they get a look-alike of the same drug, but there is nothing in that drug. So the patient will take it, or the participant will take it, imagining that they are taking the real drug. And so they want to see the effect. So there are some psychological and many things that goes with it. I recall when I was in secondary school, Panadol was our standard placebo. Whatever is wrong with you, the guy will just give you Panadol. And somehow, because you have gone to the clinic and you've been given a drug, you will just be well one way or the other. But as I grew up and understood more about placebo, it's a lot bigger than that, especially in new drugs testing. But they have been able to prove to some extent that psychology of administering placebo works for a while. But in reality, placebo is just like, it's an aberration, okay? So that's the first point that I wanted to explain in this process. Now, a number of our forefathers, I'll put it, have said many things about education. And thank you, Dr. Roberts, for sharing that one about Nyerere of Tanzania. Now, I picked this one from Nelson Mandela, and it says education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So, as I reflect on this, my question is, what prompted Mandela to say this? And this is where I want to have the first interaction. And if you would like to speak, I will ask that you raise up your electronic hand, and I would like to call maybe 2 or 3 people who can help us to understand the mind of Mandela at this point. I also want to thank the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ojodu, for joining this. Okay, so please, the moderator or the host, if you can, I cannot see any hands raised up yet, but I would like to see or to hear from people what they think about this particular statement. If you don't feel like speaking, you can also put it in the chat box and I will look at that. But I actually prefer to hear somebody, or at least 2 or 3 people, on what they think about this Mandela statement and why did Mandela say this? This is very, very important. Is there any hands up yet? Or people
yes, we have one.
Okay, please, can you unmute the person and let the person, please mention your name.
Omojewi.
Okay, Omojewi, please go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm Omojewi. From during the course of our studies, our lecturer, Dr. Sule, taught us that education is a veritable yeast that is used to transform society economically, politically, socially, and otherwise. And I think we try to do a discussion, interaction in the course of our program in Corona, discussing that there is a difference between education and schooling. So if we apply education, which is a means to transform humanity, I think we'll get it right. There will be a change in our society. If we see those countries that are doing very well, it's as a result of the right application of education, not schooling. What we do in Nigeria most times from our lecturer is that we are schooling. So Nigerians should begin to apply education. I think that is what Nelson Mandela is trying to tell us. The right application of education will change the society. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. That is so deep and so inspiring. Do we have one or two more that we can take and then we will move on? Is there any one or two more that we can take?
Yes, Dr. Akudo Kennedy.
Okay, please go ahead.
Dr. Akudo Kennedy, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much to the presenter and the attendees. I want to believe that education has to do with knowledge acquisition at bedrock. It is when we acquire the right kind of knowledge that we are able to actually carry out our in whichever sector we belong to, whether the political sector, whether the commercial sector, whether the religious sector. It is the right kind of education that enables us to handle things right. Once we have the wrong kind of education, or otherwise we are not educated, everything goes down. So that is why Nelson Mandela was motivated to say, with education, the world can be changed. If a nation can be changed by education, then the world can be changed by education.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank also those that are reacting on the chat. I want to recognize indeed Abayomi. In fact, Dr. Mosaku, your contribution is very, very deep and germane. That education liberates the mind. And once the mind is liberated, it is an intrinsic motivation that lasts forever. And that's why you see that those that are truly educated never stops learning. It is very, very important. And thank you for that. I'm seeing a bit more knowledge from Abayomi. Knowledge is available, but 1 second. Knowledge is available, but hidden or dismissed, says the author. Eat yourself cool. That's interesting. Who outlined the natural alternatives to prevent and heal sickle cell anemia stroke disease. Education, this is from Oyebola. Education from the time memorial has been a proven veritable tool which brings about round development in man. Okay. The real goal of education, says Mrs. Abraham, is to ensure a positive permanent change. And thank you, everyone. Okay, Ade Mola is quoting Maya Angelou. If we know better, we will do better. Education is the most powerful process for any society to know better and do better. Thank you so much for contributing. This is precisely the way I like to present online, to get people interacting, because I do not have all the answers. And it is also good to share the knowledge that we do have jointly. So thank you very much for that. Now, that's for Mandela. But one thing that wraps all of this up for me is the importance of education. The value can never be overestimated. And we have seen that in a lot of developed nations, that when a nation has a crop of well-educated people, the chances of development in that nation is very, very high. On the contrary, the dangers of ignorance can never be overestimated. And as I reflect on this second one, I started thinking that maybe most of us, we think of education from schooling point of view, which was why I actually appreciate one of the contributors that said that it's not about, education is different from schooling, and we tend to focus more on the schooling side. We're going to have another conversation on that, but I was reflecting on what happened in a movie that I watched, and I'm not sure whether it's real or not real, but this chap that was a cleaner in that hospital was cleaning, and there's a gentleman that was on life support machine. And yes, he was doing his job diligently. He cleaned every day, he comes early, he doesn't leave until late, but he did not know. But he did not know that the life support machine that was connected to the plug was the one that was holding the gentleman on the ICU alive. And so when the man was sleeping, he came in, he was cleaning, the wire or the plug seems to be disturbing him. So he unplugged it, cleaned everywhere very well. And as he was about to go out, he then remembered, oh, I unplugged. So he plugged it back and then left. Of course, the man passed on. And for him, he didn't do anything wrong. But if he had understood the implication of his action, perhaps he would have acted differently. And that sometimes is what happens to us, where we just go through school, we memorize and regurgitate, rather than being educated so that we can be transformed, or at least so that our minds can be transformed. And in many engagements that I've had, and we had one very recently in Lagos State, where the ambassador for education from Finland was with us, and the ambassador to Nigeria from Finland was also with us. And we started this conversation around how come Finland remains the gold standard when it comes to education, and yet they spend minimal time in classroom. And so that conversation led us to understanding the process which they had to go through, that in transforming mind, many things are at play. They spend most of the time experiencing what they are teaching people. And so if I need to teach somebody about, let's say, plants and how they grow or something, or the ecosystem, then I'll take them to the forest, they will experience it, they will see what happened with the plants, what eat this, how they release gas and all kinds of stuff. And that person will understand because he or she has been educated. Not in these days, I see students learning practicals by, they call it the theory of practicals. I could never ever understand that. That when you do litmus tests, then it will turn to this. So you understand what should happen, but you have never experienced what should happen. And so that education is flawed. And it means that your interpretation in life then also becomes very flawed. And that's why we must indeed appreciate the difference between schooling and education. So, but for me, and I watch many, I have many interactions at different levels when it comes to education. Good education indeed is the base of any developed nation. And as I watched one Netflix film or documentary in rural Malawi, and there was this young chap, gifted, in the village. He used to read, radios, fixed radios, TVs, without going to any formal tech school. It was a natural gift. He had the sense of doing these things, but his father never really encouraged him. His father wanted him to go to the farm so that we can earn some money and so on and so forth. But this chap actually was motivated to learn how things work. So went into the village school. His father didn't have money to pay for his school fees, but he appealed that they should just allow him to go to the library. And whilst in the library, he was learning about solar power. He was learning about motors and how things rotate. And all he wanted to do was to understand that physics principle of how you can absorb energy from the sun and translate it into some kind of rotary thing so that it can irrigate the farm, which the father labored so hard for. And the father didn't understand that. But that, for me, was the difference in education. This guy understood very clearly that there are higher values that you bring to the table when you are educated. But if you do things in the usual rudimentary way, you will be using physical energy instead of being smart about what you are doing. And so, to cut the long story short, this guy eventually became successful at that process, and the entire village benefited from it. And of course, the father became very proud of the guy. And instead of a yield of 1, they were having yield of 10x. And that's what education brings to you. Somebody talk about knowledge acquisition. Yes, it's part of it. But when you acquire knowledge and you are not able to use this knowledge to transform the society, to transform your own mind, then that cannot be education. Now, I have gone through all of this route before we start to talk about whether education for self-reliance in Nigeria, whether it's a placebo or not. But I wanted us to understand that background. So let's take a quick review of current investments that we see in education. And as I do this, again, I'm going to ask you to put some figures in the chat box. So please come with me as I ask these questions. Everybody obviously is supposed to go through primary school. So I'm not even talking about nursery or pre-nursery or all those things that they talk about. But let's focus on primary school. In your opinion, how much do you think the average person is paying to educate a child through primary school? Now, I know this is a very big question because it depends on many things. But in your mind, I will say, give me two figures, one for public school and one for private school. And again, the private school is very diverse, I know, but I just want to get a sense of what we think. And so you just give me two figures, A/B. So the A will be the one for public school, and then the B will be the one for, so good education is the base. Okay, yeah, all right. So just figures for the entire period of primary school. Is it 100,000? Is it 5 million? Is it, just put any figure just for me to get a sense of the kind of investment that we are putting in primary school. Please go ahead, put it in the chat box just for me to see. What kind of investment do you think that as parents, as guardians, that we are putting into primary school for every child? Okay, so 50,000 to 500,000, $90 to $150, okay, 10 million, give or take, 200, wow. So I'm seeing that even in primary school these days, it's not cheap. It's not cheap. So we are seeing, I've seen 500,000, I have seen 300K as the, now this is, I'm talking of the whole period, not per year, the whole period. So I'm seeing 1 million, 4 million, okay? So it's interesting. And so whichever way we look at it, even if it is the public sector, public schools, you will need to buy uniform at least. You will need to feed the child one way or the other. You will need to buy textbooks. I know sometimes we say it is free education, but not everything really is free because you still have to pay for quite a bit outside that. Okay, so 15 million we are seeing from Olasumbo as a top one. And these days, I actually agree with you. Even primary schools are becoming fairly expensive these days, yeah. Okay, let's move to the second one, which is secondary school. Again, what do you think if it is secondary school? How much will it cost the average parent per child to go from GS1 to SS3? Oh, yeah, okay. Now you're even bringing, I didn't know that in primary schools, you even have development levies. But yeah, this is ways in which proprietors, owners are trying to upgrade their assets and keep them in top shape. So again, it's one of those things. Now let's move to secondary schools. Secondary schools, the 6 years that students spend, in some cases, 5 years for many other reasons. What is the kind of figure that we were talking about? Secondary school is between 15 million to 20 million. Wow, this is very interesting. 15 to 20 million. Let's hear from others. So we have somebody that is just using dollars all the way. Okay, 50 million. Wow. 2 million to 50 million. That's very interesting. You know, even if you go to, public schools again today, there are still some interesting things you will need to pay. But you can see that the big disparity. Wow, up to 50 million. Wow. Thanks, Dr. Roberts. Yeah, again, is the reality of times. Is the reality of times. The last time I was at Corona Secondary School and they told me the fees, I almost jumped out of my head because what they pay for 1 year was what we pay for the entire 6 years. So again, things are getting a bit different. So we're seeing 10 million, 50 million, 30. It depends on which secondary school and how, they are charging. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Not everybody will be able to make it to university, but they probably will go into vocational schools or trades, one trade or the other. And again, we probably, as a nation, have not given a lot of respect to these people who indeed are very, very important in our society. What kind of investment do parents make when their children go to a vocational school, trade of one kind or the other? What kind of investments do they make? Any figure. And the reason why I'm asking this, you will understand. And I'm trying to make a point. And that point is often lost in the way we think about education. So let's hear some figures when it comes to vocational and trade. You can put again in the chat box before I go to the next. I have two more, so let's make haste, and then we will get to the point ultimately. So for vocational and for trade, what kind of figure are we talking about? Should we be talking about? Okay, 2 million. Thanks a lot, Nora. That's a figure. Anyone else? 300,000, of course, 1 million, 5 million. It depends on what kind of trade. So if it is plumbing, if it is fashion design, if it is whatever it is, it varies. So that's the point I also wanted to make, that the disparity, the gap, the band is so wide. Now, let's go to the big one. Now, tertiary, universities, polytechnics, for depending on the course, of course, that you are going to, your course of study. It could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, depending on the course of study. What typically, and let's focus now only on Nigeria. We're not even going outside Nigeria. Let's just focus on Nigeria. What do we think? And of course, it depends on so many things. And please pardon me that I am just throwing this at random. Alayo says 400,000 for 4 years. Okay, it depends. Even for public schools, they have to pay for the accommodation. They have to pay for and the lists that I've seen in accommodation alone, by the time you round up everything, it's quite substantial. Yeah, federal, yeah, exactly. It depends on the course of study. I mean, if you are going to study, let's say nursing, in any public institution, be rest assured, you are not spending 400,000 in the 4 years, or five years actually. Definitely not. In fact, you probably will be spending a lot more, even for public school. And I'm looking at Dr. Akudo. I don't know, even $1,000, even use $1,000 is less than 1 million. I doubt if there is any public institution today that you will spend 800,000. But it depends on the course that you are doing in 4 years, definitely. Then when you move to private, it's even different. It's different. There is no private university today that you will do an undergraduate degree for anything less than yeah. So again, Olasumbo, I align with you. You should be looking at 3 million every year. By the time you talk of accommodation, you talk of the fees itself, you talk of feeding and all of that, minimum you should be looking at that. So for somebody that is doing a 4-year course, that's already 12 million. Now you see where I'm going. The last one I was going to ask is postgrad, and this is like, it depends. Not everybody is going to do postgrad, but you can add any amount again on top of that. My bulk question now is, from primary school to tertiary or to postgrad, what are the kinds of investments that parents are making. Sometimes I wonder, where do they get this money? Because it's not just one child, maybe it's 3, 4, and they struggle, and all of them go through this process. Even if you do not spend money at all, from what I am seeing here, yeah, okay, medicine is about 5 million a year per session, yeah. Even if you do not spend a lot of money, by the time they walk through all of this per child, even in the cheapest and everything, you will have spent at least 3 to 5 million, at the very least, for public school. For private school, it could be anything 50 million and above, depending on course, depending on which private school, and so on and so forth. So the reality is that we as parents, we are investing heavily in education in Nigeria. But the question is, does this investment, does it worth it? In terms of the value, in terms of the time. Now, from primary school or nursery school, whatever, up until when the child graduates, the time that we spend helping the child to learn, the money, the investment that is put into it. And at the end of the day, we expect this child to be self-reliant at the very least. For some, they expect the child to start paying back. They call it return on investment. And so the parents will say, I've done all of this for you. Now this is the time for me, I'm retired. Then you need to be paying me dividend. And some parents take it very seriously. But of course, I have a number of friends and people that says, my prayer is just that you are self-reliant and let me be on my own so that you don't depend on me. But many of our children today, when they finish, they are still dependent. Not because they want it, but because our education have not been able to transit them accordingly. So they go to all these wonderful schools, they finish, and then the next thing, they cannot afford to rent a house. And so they still stay with you while they are trying to save. They cannot afford to do little things in life, and they will still say, can you subsidize them? So which kind of education are we providing for these people if after 15, 16 plus years, they are still dependent on us? Is it a placebo? Is it a myth? Or is there something that we are not doing right? Because when we were growing up, in fact, at the time we finished school, we were providing not only for our own children, but we're also providing for our parents. And we were managing life ourselves. So we were doing both sides. But today, you'll be lucky if they just manage themselves alone, because you even have to subsidize them. So is it a placebo? You don't need to answer, but let's just keep this in thought. I want to look at a few sectors just for us to also understand whether it is what we are teaching them, what they are learning themselves, or is it just the society? Let me start with software engineering. When I started, and by the way, I did mechanical engineering, and you know, there were many things that were not being done at the software engineering level in my time. The kind of coding, the kind of language was a lot different. And I would dare say a lot more difficult then than now. We were doing things like Fortran and Cobalt and all kinds of language. But now they do all kinds of interesting, exciting stuff. And I have seen that people go through, after secondary school, some will do A levels, that's another 2 years. Then they will do 4 years or 3 years. So after secondary school, they will do at least 5 years. Now that 5 years, then they will do NYSC. By the time they finish, they've done 6 years. And that is if they go to a private school. If they go to public school with strikes and everything, you can add anything from 1 to 3 years. Okay? Now, the person will have gone through a process. Please, can you mute that person? That person will have gone through a process for 6 years. And then this person starts to look for a job. And the first job or the best job will be anything from 150,000, 250,000, if they're lucky, $500 million a month. Now, put that in context vis-a-vis the investment that have been put in this person. Is it worth it? Does it make sense? And that questioning, the private sector are beginning to look at it. Because when you finish that particular training for so many years with that kind of investment, they are still green and they still cannot fit 100% into the industry. The same thing goes with data science. With Internet of Things, with all kinds of data being generated every second across our spaces, people are beginning to use data to transform society. I was with one of my colleagues a couple of weeks ago, and they are into banking, but not the regular type of banking. It is the digital banking. And so almost everything that the customers do is done digitally. And looking at his screen, this guy was able to show me how transactions are moving across Nigeria. Who is the pivotal person that is transacting most? And he could pick a customer and tell me the value of the customer to their business. That's data science. And it could tell me the importance of every single customer. In fact, his data analytics will rate customers for him and say, this customer A is your #1 customer. Why? Because it's the one that sends money from one spot to 50 people to 100 people every day. This is the volume of cash, this is this. So when they want to do things around retail, sorry, can we mute this person? Thank you. So when they want to do something around retail, it is targeted. They do not begin to do a wild field, open all the nets and let all the fish come in. No, they know where to go to get the maximum. And to make it even more interesting, this data can be presented in a visualized manner. Now, we don't teach this like this in most of the universities. Yet, I have seen people who have gone through these two without going to the university. The case of very smart students have gone through the Andela program. And although the Andela program takes a while, even some of that is like 4 years, but you earn as you are learning. But then we have different approaches these days. Around us here in Shogotedo, we have a residential program, and it's been done by an NGO. Brings about 50 students together, is residential, and for 6 months, they are taught how to code for specific businesses, mostly financial institutions. By month 6, as they are finishing, the banks are waiting to get these guys. And they pay them much more than what they pay graduates that have gone through 4 to 6 years in tertiary education. Now, the question then is, which one is education? Which one gives you self-reliance? And which one is making a difference to you as an individual, but also for the parents that are putting these investments together? Now let's reflect together, and please let's use the chat as we reflect again together. I'm going to ask about 3 questions and then we will move on. The first one is, so what is happening outside our formal education system? And I think the point has been made that education is not about going to school alone. So education is, a set of instructing people in particular field. And we've had that even 1,000 years ago, where if you want to go and learn a trade or something, they would say, go to this goldsmith. He is the best in Lagos, and he will be able to teach you. And that's not a school. So it's a way of instructing. Mechanics, we have seen people will take kids to mechanics, they will go and learn the trade over a period. Same with tailoring in those days, especially all the vocational ones. That's the way in which people learn rather than the formalized system. But in advanced countries, I've also seen situations where children do what they call homeschooling. And in homeschooling, some of them actually learn very fast, and a few of them go to universities at age 14 now, or some even at 12. Not that I subscribe to that, because there are issues of maturity that goes with going to tertiary institution. But the point that I'm trying to make is that those that are in the formal educational system, can we truly say our ways are the only ways in which we can educate people? And that process, does it worth it? Because the private sector are filling the gap. So I would like maybe 1 or 2 people to again raise up their hand, and I would like to hear people's opinion on what we are seeing outside the formal educational system. If I take even the creative arts, where people used to go to maybe school of music, school of this, school of that, school of fashion design in schools, and it takes them 3 to 4 years to get BSc or BA in arts and this and that. People actually just go join a band or start some creative stuff, and in 1 year they are doing far better than those that went to our tertiary institutions. So what are we seeing outside the formal education system? Are they competing with us? Are they producing better outputs than those of us that are in the educational system? And from that perspective, is education, the way we have it, a placebo or not? I'd like to have thoughts from 1 or 2 persons. I can't see the hand raised up, so please help me out here if there's any hand up. Is there any hand up?
Yes, Dr. Akudo Kennedy.
Okay, Dr. Akudo, please go ahead.
I'm not sure if the formal education system can be independent of the non-formal system. For instance, after being trained as a doctor, one is expected to go for housemanship. That is is outside the formal system. And after being trained as a lawyer, you are also expected to go for law school before you can actually be recognized. So to me, it seems that the formal education cannot be completely independent of the non-formal system. That is my submission.
Okay, I want us to reflect together again. You cannot go for housemanship if you have not completed certain parts of your medical training. And so they are integrated. So whether it is your housemanship, whether it's your clinical stuff you are going for, whatever it is, it presupposes that you have done some theoretical work before you can do that. In fact, you can't just wake up today and say, I'm going to law school. You can't, because the basis of going to law school is that you have completed your degree program. Not anybody can walk into that unless I'm wrong. So that
education. Everybody
that is system. Sorry? Sorry, please. I didn't hear that. Okay, let's hear from Nora. Please go ahead, Nora. Nora Jagade.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bankole. Quite insightful and thought-provoking. My challenge is curriculum. I mean, talking about just suppose if the non-formal education can be just opposed with the formal education and still get the same result, or if they are not completing it, I think that our education system has not accommodated or has no room for practicals. So whatever we learn in school, we're not able to practice. And here is this other system, the non-formal, it was going to practice. And this is what a society needs. They want to be able to perform, but we don't have that opportunity to perform in the school. It is just now that we get many schools having skill acquisition in their program, trying to ensure that the children are able to do something with their hands or to be able to put to practice what they are learning. So I do believe that this is indeed a competition. It's really giving us a run for our money. The money we're investing does not seem to be of any use compared to what we are learning in school, the practical aspects of it. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Nora. Adeboale, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yes. My name is Adeboale Adebagbo. Sorry, you may be hearing some sound in a public place, but I just want to point out something. Then I want to observe that there is need to distinguish between making provision in our curriculum for enterprising skills to be able to be integrated into the society as a trained person. And there is a difference between making provision in the curriculum and really carrying out the curriculum content of training. Now, those people that we are talking about in the non-formal education, they don't even have curriculum and they train their apprentices or those people that go to them properly. But the problem really is not that there is no provision in the curriculum content, rather, we are not implementing accordingly. So if we really want to talk about this, there is also need to also look into implementation of the curriculum. Is it that the curriculum or the provision is not appropriate, or the implementation is faulty, so that we be focused rightly, so that our discourse today will not also be a placebo? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. First of all, I love the angle that you have brought into it, this issue of entrepreneurial skills. In our university, you cannot graduate if you do not take this compulsory course in entrepreneurship. It's for a whole year. You have to take that course because we just don't want you to be another accountant We want you to be an enterprising accountant. We don't want you to be an engineer, but an enterprising engineer. And an engineer that doesn't, in addition to understanding fluid dynamics and thermodynamics, we want you to be able to look at the society and say, this is a societal problem that my training as an engineer can help me to resolve so that we can have a better society. The same way in which I told the story of that film I watched in Netflix about this young chap who used that knowledge to be able to uplift the village. And that's what it's all about. Whether you put it in the, but implementation is very critical. I agree with you. When we teach entrepreneurship to all the students, and this is usually in their second year, from September, October to June the next year, they must, in addition to the principles and everything that we teach them, they must start and run a business on campus. They must start and run a business on campus. And not only that, they will present that business at the expo, and they will return the seed money that we will have given them. So we teach them how to raise capital, how to pay back to those that provide this capital to them. Of course, if they don't refund the money, you cannot pass that particular course. So they understand all the gamut. And so by extension, somebody can study pharmacy, but then your entrepreneurial mindset will make you question, why do we have to buy malaria tablets that is imported from India? Why can't we look at the dogoyaro tree and say, how can I convert that into some kind of tablets, or if you may, even a syrup that people can take and they should be okay? Because that is what we, in the traditional setting, people use dogoyaro as an anti-malaria medicine. So why can't we go through a process that formalizes it and makes it acceptable to the wider world? That's what education does for us. So it's us understanding that and helping our students to be able to transit that. But let's move. Let's go to the next thing, so that we don't also overflow the issue. So, is education for self-reliance a myth? Is it a placebo? And I think we're already answering this question one way or the other. Or is it we, the educators, that needs upgrading? And I like the way in which the last speaker focused on implementation. For us, most of our students, when they finish that entrepreneurial training in their second year, some of them continue with the ventures. So by the time they get to their fourth year, they are actually still earning. So they are not under any pressure to go and look for a job. Not every one of them, of course. Those that eventually get a job, they understand what we mean by entrepreneurship and the value they bring to that organization that they are going to. So they are able to ask and get the correct, in quote, if there's anything called correct, dividend for the investments that have been put in education. That's for them. Now, but the question that keeps recurring in my mind is, so why are people jackpotting? This is one word that we've heard very well in the last 1 or 2 years. And I must say, and I will give people opportunity to, if you care, please put it in the chat. Why do you think people are jackpotting? Okay. So I look at the doctors. Let's start with the doctors. And there are many of them going to UK, US, Canada, and the rest of the world, even the Middle East. I was fortunate or privileged to be part of the curriculum review when we work with NUC, that's the National Universities Commission. And although I was focusing on the entrepreneurship curriculum, while we were waiting, I was able to listen to those that were presenting and reviewing for the medical doctors. And I was shocked. The level of detail and how our medical doctors are trained in Nigeria, they can compete with anyone in the world. Under the circumstances with which we train and the output that we get, anything short of calling them magicians. So when they go out, they become superstars. The only challenge, of course, is that the rate at which they are going out is a lot more than the rate at which we are producing them. Of course, as an entrepreneur, for me, that's an opportunity, which means we need to begin to focus on that. The same thing with those that are in the ICT field. Typically, our intake in the university this year has tripled in ICT-related courses. Tripled. Why? Because it's not because people can even use it, it's a quick getaway. But beyond that, we are even seeing people today that after they graduated, or even before they finish graduating, they are able to earn. I think the ability to be able to earn, which is that self-reliance, if you run a course that enables people to do that, then they are good. Then you will see that there's natural gravitation. One of my colleagues' son, who is in the public university, was, of course, for like 8 months, they were at home. But because he studied computer science, he was not at home. He was working throughout the period. And indeed, he contributed significantly to the family purse. Now, what does that mean? This guy is now in his final year. But before he could even finish, he has started earning what was contributing significantly to the family purse. What will happen to his junior brothers in the house? They see it as a gateway to that self-reliance. How come other courses are not like that? We need to begin to ask ourselves as educators. So I ask the question again, and please, let's put it again in the chat box, and I will take 1 or 2 people just to hear what their opinion. Is education in Nigeria for self-reliance, is it a placebo or not? Is it something that we are not doing right that is making it look like a placebo? Or indeed, we're just finding English to cover up what is not working? I would like to hear from us and a few people who may want to speak. You can raise up your hand, and then we will try and do this very quickly. So if you want to speak, just raise up your electronic hand. I see Deepo, Olorunso. So let's start with Deepo. Please go ahead, make it brief.
Yeah, thank you very much. In Nigeria, education is not directed towards self-reliance. We are too much certificate and paper qualification conscious in Nigeria. Our ultimate goal is certificates, not on the skills that we have acquired and we can display. And that makes it not self-reliant. And all the student is struggling to have is the certificate at all costs, not minding whether he has acquired the required skills or not.
Thank you so much. This is so absolutely correct. When this was the first shock that I got when I got into the UK for my degree. And I noticed that people that were plumbers were even earning much more than those that graduated. We started looking at job offers and even from year one. And I noticed that a senior engineer with 10 years of experience was then being offered something like £50,000. And fresh graduates were being offered like 20,000, 24,000 pounds, something like that. And I asked myself, how come this senior person in engineering is not able to afford the kinds of things that a plumber in the UK can afford? These guys, in fact, I have one chap that he just renovates buildings. And in that renovation, this guy was making very conservatively in a year, he'll be making at least 120,000, 150,000 pounds. So how come an engineer with 10, 15 years experience is earning a third of what this guy is doing? They value skills. They value skills much more than us that value certificate. And that is a problem because the certificate cannot transform society. It's a skill set that you have and what you can use to interact with the society that people begin to value. So thank you for that. Let me call on Philip Omiale. Please go ahead. Philip Omiale.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Nigerian education system is faulty. It's faulty in the sense that most of our graduates are unemployable due to the faulty of the curriculum. That is why we are not practically putting everything we study in school in place. You can remember what the president said some years back, that Nigerian youth were lazy. In the sense that they go to school, after the school year, they were seeing women around looking for a job. This indicates that something is wrong somewhere. The purpose of education is to reflect what might have been taught in school and put into proper use, not to be looking for white-collar job. Whatever you have studied in school, how can you bring it to work? How can you make ends meet from it? How can you bring people together? It is only in Nigeria I see that Nigerian engineer and mechanical engineer will be looking for a roadside mechanic to come and fix his car. Why is he will be claiming that I'm an engineer? The question is, engineer in what area? Can you practice what you study? You only carry paper around because the certificate we are holding, we cannot practice it. And this is really affecting us and our system. Until we go back to we refurbish our curriculum to make it more entrepreneurial, as we call it, so that everybody can make impact. Everybody can make a contribution, construct contribution, society. Everybody will have a role to play if truly we want to grow our educational system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Philip. And then for those that are in the chat box, I'm seeing Mrs. Adeyoyin. Thank you so much for your contribution. And yes, you're absolutely correct. Our educational system is not delivering enough ready skill for our graduates today. Okay, so now just one point, and I always talk about this. A mechanical engineer is different from an automotive engineer. Again, we need to be very clear. And not that they cannot do certain things, but automotive is just different. A mechanical engineer can still do things of that nature, but it's more focused on automotive. Let me go to Nora now. Please, you can, once you've spoken, you can put off your mic and then you can also lower your hand. So, Omiyale, sorry, did Philip Omiyale, exactly, thank you so much. So, Nora Jegede, we will just take a few more and then please no more raising up of hands so that we can close out. Nora Jegede.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bankole. Many years ago, I studied communication and language at my first degree. Then I now wanted to be a secretary. Many years back, I didn't have the qualification of a secretary. So I got a typewriter.
Wow, I don't know if it is my system.
These banks. Someone employed me. Hello, sir.
Yes, I'm hearing you again now.
Okay. No one employed me. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah.
Okay, no one employed me, but until I got to this American company, then was 3M. And I went there, I did a test. Many of them came with their shorthand skills and all of that. They couldn't take notes very fast. I had this typewriting skill, and I had knowledge of note-taking, taking it very fast. Then I got the job as a secretary, and I worked there for 6 years. I said that to tell you that, you see, those who went to school to learn to be a secretary didn't get the job. But the skills required, I had it and I got the job. We need the skills. We need to be taught the skills. We need to be able to implement the skills. Otherwise, we are not going anywhere. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Nora. You know, sometimes we also are not guided properly. We are not guided properly, maybe because the way we feel as parents and so on and so forth. One of my daughters went to university, finished in international business, but her passion was for culinary services. And when she told me she wanted to do culinary services, I'm like, for what? And that's the typical reaction of a parent. What I normally do is that once you finish your uni, I give them a year's break where they go and learn language. Again, this is from experience because I know that the world is changing very fast, and the more international languages you're able to speak, the better for you. And so one of them went to study French in addition to what they've done up to master's level. The second one went to do Spanish. And I saw the big picture. So this other one, I said, why don't you go and study Mandarin? So that at least in the family, I know that I can move around the world without problem. And she said, instead of language, let me do language of the stomach. And that was very interesting. Eventually, she used her own 1 year of language study to go to Le Cordon Bleu. And sincerely, that was where she had that transformation. Today, she still works in the UK. She's working one of the most luxurious brands over there. And you could see that when people's minds are transformed, even those things that they have learned before at uni or whatever comes to play. Today, I pioneered EDC, but I studied as a mechanical engineer. But what my training gave me was the ability to reason logically and how to look at problem and say, this is how you solve problem. Critical thinking, problem solving, and things of that nature. In this building that we are in today, we're running on 35% solar. When I was in school learning mechanical engineering, there was nothing called solar. But that transformation of mind helped me to be able to say, this is possible. let us go through this route. And that's what education, in my opinion, should be about. But we'll continue. I'd like to ask the VC rep, Dr. Anumu, to please speak.
Mr. Speaker, in addition to what the earlier speaker, are you with me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
In earlier, with what other speakers earlier said, I think our problem in Nigeria in education is a systemic problem. We are one-way traffic, and we don't want to change our old way of doing things to reflect the new way of doing things. I did my MSc and PhD in UK, for instance. I want to categorically tell you that when I was doing my MSc in UK, I faced a lot of hell. I don't know how to type because I lecture here before I go. We give our typing to business center. I have to go and ask them at help desk, how will I type? They will say, the instruction is on the desktop. Go and read it. All the coursework, I have to take my time to spend up to 24 hours at times in the library, learning how to interact with the system. But thank God today, when I was doing my PhD, I didn't do my MSc in UK, I would have run into a problem. So what am I saying there is that the way our education system here is outdated. Where a lecturer will say, this is what I teach you, and I want it to reflect the way I teach you, forgetting the fact that we are to mold this student to become somebody outside the certificate.
Okay.
So by and large, when I say systemic, when a student is saying they are doing alternative to practical, what is alternative to practical? I have a case here in my house here, a niece that stays with me, study electrical electronics, electrical engineering. We had the electrical issue in the house. We called local artisans to come and repair it for us. And a whole torchlight for the local artisans to be repairing the faults. And I now called him. I said, I was ashamed of yourself. You read the electrical electronics in school, and you are holding torchlight for somebody that read the ordinary artisans, that's roadside technicians. I said, you need to look for a way of improving yourself. If need be, go to local people, go and learn how to do this thing practically. By and large, as I said, it's a systemic issue, and may God help us, sir.
Amen. Thank you so much. Again, because of time, I will just try to address one or two things that I see in the chat box. Again, UK is not necessarily the center for excellence, but they're doing well. And so I've referred as well to Finland, and there are many cases. Today, Canada is also very good. Perhaps that's why people are going there. But there are some things that are happening in Nigeria, and so we can also use that as a case. When it comes to entrepreneurial venture, when it comes to startup, Lagos, for instance, has been the center of excellence in Africa. You may believe it. You can check the internet in the last 3 years, okay? And what has happened is that, in fact, amongst the investors that are coming to Africa today, they will tell you that if for them to invest in any startup, go and try it out in Lagos. If it works in Lagos, it will work anywhere, and we will invest in you. There's something we are doing right in Lagos that is forcing all of these startups to come to Lagos. In fact, in the last 4 to 5 years, we've had 2 or 3 unicorns coming out of Lagos. Now, they know that by the time you have tested Lagos, you will have problem with cyber attacks. You can solve it. You will have problems with infrastructure. You solve it. You have problems. So if you can solve all of that, there is no way you cannot exist anywhere else. So that's one for you. Nigeria, and more importantly, I would say Lagos is a test bed for budding entrepreneurs, and all of them that succeed in Lagos succeed outside Lagos. And in fact, I was so shocked. A couple of my students, very unassuming, the next time I saw them, they are in three countries in Africa. Somebody's investing $2 million. I'm like, small you, but that's what it is. So Lagos at least gives you that advantage. So that's one example for you. I want to thank everybody that has participated in this. I wanted it to be interactive. I didn't want to just give a lecture, and I'm glad that we have been able to achieve that. So thank you very much. And I'm just going to put down my slides. Thank you very much. The final note for me is not whether it's a placebo or it is not. Clearly, I can tell you that it is the way we want to interpret it. And it is also what we want to do about it. In my own case, I believe that it is not a placebo, but we have a lot of work to do. As educators, as individuals, as parents, each and every one of us have a role to play. And the earlier we start playing that role, the better it will become obvious to us that it is not a placebo. I thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bankole. Please, can we give a virtual hand for Dr.? At a point, I stopped checking my time and I began to follow in the lecture as well. Thank you very much, Doctor, for that pragmatic approach to today's discourse. Personally, I have my own take home, and I want to really emphasize again that education for self-reliance in Nigeria is not a placebo, as stated by Doctor. And for me, again, I believe that from what we've discussed and shared, that when people's minds are transformed, they are able to channel skills, education, into meaningful assets that can impact their quality of living and their lives as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Again, once again. I would like to recognize some persons in our midst this very moment. During the course of the lectures, we have some distinguished persons that joined us, and I would like to recognize Engineer Kunle Adebayo, Member Governing Board, CSTC, Corona Schools Trust Council, representative of the Vice Chancellor, Lagos State University of Technology, Dr. Jodu. We have the Dean School of Education, FC Akoka, in our midst also this afternoon, in the person of Mrs. Igbinoba. We have the Dean School of Business Education, Mrs. Igbinoba. We have the Director Center for Development and Endowment, FC Akoka, Dr. Kende Olojede. We have also in our midst distinguished lecturers from Yaba Tech, FC Akoka, Lagos State University of Education, University of Lagos. We also have the immediate past provost of Corona College of Education, Dr. Obinya, here this afternoon with us. Thank you all for coming. We don't want to go ahead and mention every other lecturers, but we recognize your presence and we appreciate your participation in today's lectures. For everyone that has spoken, thank you all for the time. I would like to also invite Dr. DK, who is the HOD, Educational Administration and Foundations, and Mr. Tela Peolu, the Dean, School of Education, to please anchor the question and answer segment for us.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, or good morning. That was a wonderful lecture, highly interactive. My name is Dr. Mike Dike. Please, if you have questions to ask, kindly put it on the chat box or you raise up your electronic hand. If you're on YouTube, please, you can also send your question on the comment section so that we will be able to read it out for our guest lecturer. If you have questions, please, electronic hands. Let's see your electronic hands, put up electronic hands, or you put it up on the chat box.
We're still expecting. Sorry. Please, we have one person. Put up your virtual hands. No, we have Dr. Stella Numino. Please unmute yourself. Dr. Stella Numino, please ask your question.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, that was a very deep and inspiring lecture. Thank you, Dr. Obam Kole, for that wonderful, educative and informative lecture. Now, the question I want to ask Dr. Bankole is this. You said that Finland type of education is experiencing. How do we make Nigerian educational system or education experiencing like that of Finland? Because in educational system and in the management, we have to allow our children or the students to use tacit knowledge and manage our knowledge very well. But as a teacher, you find out that our students are not experiencing, they're not even interested in trying to do assignments the way you want them to do it. So how do we engage our students from experiencing the education we teach them so that at the end of this all, they will have entrepreneurial skills that will lead them to man the structure and superstructure in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our advice, let's all ask the questions, then our guest lecturer will respond to it. Next is Dr. Adedayo. Dr. Adedayo, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. This afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Well done, our dear presenter. It's really a stimulating lecture you give. Can everybody hear me? Am I being?
Yes, yes, you can go ahead.
Yes, I made a point. I put it on the chat box too, the question. Now, what I have observed, Finland and others, most of the way they teach students is more of applied and theoretical. I've been teaching maths and statistics all the years, and I learned some years ago, after graduating for a long time and teaching, that, through a book I was reading, that over there in developed nations, they do the practical aspect. So all these things we're doing probability and we don't know the practical aspect, we're only learning the theoretical aspect. Then I've been studying UK and Canada of recent. In UK, right from primary school, whatever is being taught is theoretical, it's applied so that the students can see the relevance to everyday living. The same with Canada. I was looking at my granddaughter's assignments and all in Canada. The way they are teaching them is applied. They are not just teaching maths, for example, as a subject. They are teaching as a living subject that has relevance. And that is where we have missed it in Nigeria. I wanted to ask, sir, don't you think we should also look at such examples instead of just teaching theory, which, people don't even know what is it relevant for, what is it, how useful is it to everyday living. We need to emphasize and learn from this nation. I looked at their past questions in exams, especially in my area, in mathematics, statistics. They're all on practical issues that will make students to understand the relevance of this. Here in Nigeria, we are just taking theory. They know Pythagoras theorem, what is it used for? How relevant is it? They don't know. So we need to take a look at the way teaching and assessment is being done in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Please, if you have asked your question, please put down your virtual hand. Please, Dr. Stella Numino and Dr. Adedayo, please kindly do that. Also, next is Adebowale. Please, Adebowale.
Thank you so much. Please, can you hear me? I'm in the
can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I want to make a critical observation on today's presentation and the thought that is going on within me. Now, if you look at our school system and makeup, we have students, we have teachers, whatever may be the category, whether you are a lecturer, you are a professor, or whatever may be your title. Now, if you look at the subjects being taught or the courses being taught, I'm trying to cover all levels of education now, not primary, secondary, tertiary institutions. Whatever is being taught, I want us to look at the population of the teachers. So I'm using the word teachers to cover every category of a teacher, whether you are a professor, you are a lecturer, you are a primary school teacher, or a student teacher. Now, if you look at the population of teachers in our schools, how many we are trying to encourage them to teach students practically so that they can attain self-reliance because of practical skills. But there is an aspect we are not looking at, and that is the aspect of the teachers themselves. Now we are introducing self-reliance, entrepreneurial skill into the curriculum so that the students can gain this experience or skills. But what population of the teachers in their environment have these skills that we are trying to impart in the students? What I'm saying is that let's say we have about 6,000 students in the school, and there are 100 or 200 teachers in that school. Out of these 200 teachers, maybe 50 of them are into entrepreneurial courses or practical courses, and 150 other teachers are not into entrepreneurial or practical courses, they are into theoretical courses. Now, which also signifies that most teachers who are in that school do not have attributes of self-reliance, or probably they may not be engaging in self-reliant practices. Don't we think this will also be affecting the students in that environment? So while we are trying to focus on the students that we're going to give them the practical skill, there is also need to reorientate the teachers so that they also can be self-reliant. It may not be really their own area of specialization, but if they have additional skills that could earn them that attribute of being self-reliant, it will also be transmitted into their courses they are teaching, which is not a practical course or an entrepreneurial course. So I want us to also look into that aspect and see how it has affected our educational system. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, if you're asking our questions, please, let's be very, very brief. Not more than 15, 20 seconds. No more than 15 seconds, please. Next is Dr. Kehinde Olojede.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to sincerely appreciate the guest lecturer, although I missed part of it earlier because of network connection. My question has actually been posted on the chat, in the chat box, and that is the fact that our curriculum these days, and for a long time in both primary, secondary, and tertiary, the timetable is overloaded. And the timetable and the contents of the courses that are being taught are what determines the examination, which will be done at the end of the day. So where do we key in a substantial chunk of entrepreneurial skills and at the same time not jeopardize the students' preparation for the examination at the end of the day? In the college where I teach at the moment, we have a center that is running this entrepreneurial skill for the students. A time has been carved out on Wednesdays for them. But when I look at the quantum of time that is carved out, at times I ask myself, how effective will it be in the long run? So my question is, how can we successfully embed quality entrepreneurial skills into our education system without significantly pruning down the content that is there now? Because there is a kind of information overload already. Adding anything entrepreneurial to it without pruning what is currently existing will lead to much more overload for the students, and much gain may not be realized at the end of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think lastly, it's Abayomi Tolulope. Abayomi Tolulope. Hello, Abayomi Tolulope. Okay, thank you. In the absence of that, please, our lecturer kindly respond to all the questions. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, let me thank all those that have asked the questions, and I particularly love the question of Dr. Kehinde Olojede. It is something that most faculty talks about. Is not new. In fact, it's not just the faculty, even the students themselves, they usually complain about it. The way in which we teach entrepreneurship is very different and is very tasky. But entrepreneurship cannot be taught the way we teach physics, chemistry, or maths, at least not in Nigeria. And so two things happen to the students. The first thing is that because the methodology is different, they quickly get either confused or overwhelmed. But we understood that challenge. And one of the things that we struggled with when we were even reviewing the curriculum at the NUC level is precisely what you are saying. They said, if you want to put more credit loads on these students, then what are we going to remove? But you see, it is because we're thinking of it as a load. If we are not thinking of it as a load, then it becomes exciting and enjoyable, and people will do them naturally. In fact, let me give you some of the things that we're already doing to make it not feel like entrepreneurship. We have a hostel today in the main campus called Enterprise Hostel. And ultimately, you have to be an entrepreneur in one way or the other, in your thinking, in this and that, for you to stay at the top floor of that hostel. Now, as you enter that top floor of the hostel, you will see an inscription. Not everybody lives here. Not everybody lives here. Or you have to be an entrepreneur to get to the top level. Now, so the way they live in clusters. So in a cluster, there could be 6 or 8 of them there. And if the 6 or 8 of them have the same idea around maybe a venture or something like that, and they can create a patent out of that, it means that after they have finished school, typically, they could come back and they could say, okay, today, let's talk about this thing for a couple of hours. So they are having their dinner, they are having conversations, and they are talking about something interesting. So the 6 of them can come out around the table or in their sitting room, and they can do that. And the more they do that in a very relaxed manner, they don't see it as a burden. And ultimately, if they break out and do something exciting, then at the entrance of the hall, instead of putting faces or whether it's vice chancellor or governor or whatever, we put the faces of these people. And you can imagine as a parent, you are coming in and the face of your child is the one that adorns that hostel. Then the other people were asking, how come this guy's faces, they are not your own? They say, oh, because he's an entrepreneur. So we are not taking you away from the work you are doing for why you are doing what you are doing, but is to apply that to societal solution, and that's it. So it is to remove that mindset that is an added problem. In fact, by Q1 next year, we will start the Innovation Hub, which is something that is even more exciting. I have seen very troublesome students turn into very exciting and knowledgeable students just because of the way in which you deliver things. Today, I chair the advisory board of Lagos State Comprehensive Schools. And I have seen the turnaround just by giving a notepad to a student, the way they learn, the way they think, and these guys will learn like 5-6 hours and they don't see it as a burden. So that is what I would like to respond on that one. Now, experiential, Dr. Stella Amonu. Now, how can we deploy this in our schools? Again, I have experiences both at the secondary school level and more relevantly at the tertiary. You see, until you connect knowledge to the reason why that knowledge is being absorbed, then there will always be disconnect. And I appreciate those of you that have said we have that disconnection. In the area where we are in Ibejuleki, I've asked our engineering students to go to the community that is very close to them and let them see what they as engineers training can do to check the economic realities of those people. So if it is to bring power there so that they can do things, let's look at how can we use solar to power some of the little things they are doing. If it is not solar, if it is some kind of mini grid, let's look at what we can do. And then let's do things that they themselves can fix. So as they are doing these things, they are not doing it. So when they are learning, they are elect, or they are doing mechatronics and all of that, it's not because they want to go and get a job, which they can, and they probably would anyway. But when they are impacting the society or the community around them, they will see a better fulfillment and they will understand the importance of that vocation, of that course which they are studying. And in fact, in the school today, when we do graduation, we do this, we do all kinds of things that we do. The students in the School of Media and Communication, they are the ones that are doing all our media activities. And so as students, and we pay them. And so they can see, and as the more you pay them, and they say, oh, I need to do it better because I'm now competing with those that are coming from outside. We're not giving it to them because they are students, but each time they improve in the way they do things and we're fair in paying them, this guy will always do the best. And then if they don't have the competence, they will call their colleague and say, oh boy, there is one job that we need to do. I know this is your area of expertise in editing, in animation or something like that. Let's work together. That's how companies are created. That's how teams are formed. And they are learning this like that. So this is how we practicalize some of those things. You will teach principles. Principles are very important. Nobody can run away from that. But yes, you need to give the platform for this to happen. I'm seeing a comment and yeah, so using students as internal resources for us is very important. Applied, I love Dr. Adedayo's comments. Again, the same one I talk about, the School of Science and Tech, is also very, very relevant here. Now, so for me, it is not just about teaching. When you teach the students and you are able to show them the possibilities, they will develop that mindset of self-reliance from day one. I would like to share with you, somebody mentioned Touchlight and this, I was just smiling. When I was in the secondary school, several years back, there was no public electricity, so we used generators almost through. And then they wanted to electrify the school, wire the whole thing and make sure that we can connect to PHCN or NEPA, as it was called in those days. And one of my colleagues, and he was in year 3, so this is like GS3. And this guy was maybe a bit older than us then, primarily because he had gone to learn the trade before coming to school. And he went to the principal and said, he can do it. And the principal was like, give me the info, let's see. And they checked everything, and it was a big risk that the principal took at that time. Even though he went back to where this guy learned his trade, and the guy said, I will back him up in case of any problem. So that was like the guarantor. And he told the principal, this guy is very good. In fact, it was so good, we asked him to go to school so that he cannot remain at the level that we are. So the guy understood the implication of going to school. To cut the long story short, these guys, when we go to cut grass, when we serve punishment, when we do all those things, he was not doing any. He was doing the electrical work for the entire school. In less than 3 or 4 months, he wired the entire school. He had another guy at the Bambo who helped him. He too had gone to do this trade before. And the two of them, they did the electrification of the school at about maybe 1/3 of the price. For me, it was an eye-opener that and we celebrated this guy. Today, this guy is working for organizations like Total, in fact, quite a number of oil companies. It's incredible. So there is no way in which you integrate practical skill sets into people that it does not change your course in life. There is no way. So as educators, let us too begin to think about it. What our regulators do is to set what we call BMAS. That is the basic minimum benchmark. And we can creatively add more things, but let it not look like a burden, but something that is very exciting. Let me now go to the last person, which is Adeboale. You are right. You cannot give what you don't have. So teachers that are not entrepreneurial cannot honestly do this. In the last 3 years, we have been bringing directors of enterprise centers and some of their key staff to this place to see how we have been doing it. If you are in Enterprise Development Center today, you cannot function well here if you are not involved in some kind of enterprise. And we also make sure that you sit on advisory boards of small businesses to gain knowledge. You work with them, you're a consultant, you are doing this. So that grounds you very well. So when my team are going to teach across the university, sincerely, they are teaching from a position of knowledge and practice. And we are very practical in what we do. Somebody mentioned the issue of numbers, and I think numbers is also very critical. It has to be deliberate. In my university, a class size cannot go more than 50. So in a situation where we have 300 students, we have to divide them into six cohorts, and then we teach them one by one so that we can have that, personal contact, and we can be able to help, to monitor, and to make them to be successful in that process of critical thinking. I hope I have addressed all of this, but yes, yeah, I believe so. Thank you very much. But if I have not, please draw my attention to it.
You're muted.
No, I'm done.
Sorry.
I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Bamikole. We have a question from Prince from YouTube. And his question is, he has 2 questions. The first one is, good morning, sir. Don't you think that the poor treatment method to teachers in terms of remuneration is affecting teaching and learning in Nigeria? And the second question is, also, don't we think that unprofessionalism in the teaching sphere is also a factor to consider in teaching basic and secondary education in Nigeria? So that's the question from YouTube, sir.
Okay. Let me just say that maybe the teachers are not entrepreneurial enough. As a teacher, I'm a teacher, right? And I have been in the teaching business at least for 2 decades. To be quite honest with you, if you offer value, people will look for you and they will pay you. I have a number of my colleagues who are, let's say, teaching in ICT, tech related. They are consultants to companies. So the contribution of salary becomes reduced. And so you are not dependent only on that. And at the same time, when you consult, it makes you to be more practical to reality, and you bring that back to the classroom. I consult both at the state, federal level, and indeed for private institutions. And all that I am seeing, in fact, I consult for the World Bank, IFC, and so I'm able to bring all that context back to the classroom. I'm able to bring that context to be able to help my country. In fact, if you've ever heard of UWIN, we were at the heart of UWIN. We ran that for 4 years. And there is nowhere I go, somebody will come and meet me, oh, I did UWIN this. And because of that, my business is now this, and so on and so forth. And so as we are doing that, I am not looking at poor remuneration, because I am using my skill set to earn better than what you will call the earning of a teacher. And that's what it's all about. And there are many things that we know and that we have. I know today some university teachers are earning now even in Forex, because they do have access to teach online today. And when they teach, they pay them. And when they pay you, it's a lot. So it's not about that alone. Some of them that are teaching in maybe a College of Medicine and all kinds of stuff, of course, they are allowed to do their teaching practice and in hospitals, and so they are consultants. And so let's not always depend on government or on salaries, on this and that, and look at whatever we do that complements and enrich what we do. Some of my students have written case studies on them. Those case studies make my teaching more relevant, and it also makes the university to be more attractive. But then by the time I'm writing that case study, I get paid for doing that. And so there are, you need to be, open as a teacher to understand your capacity to earn, that it is not just about salaries. This is very important. Then the issue of being unprofessional, I definitely don't, in fact, I don't subscribe to that as well. In fact, that lowers you as a person. The more professional you are about what you do, the more likely you are going to your own rating will increase. So that's what I would say to those two comments. Those two questions. Again, I don't think, so I'm responding to Abayomi now. The issue of family, I have a very balanced life, and there is time to attend to the family. Again, you need to program yourself very well. There is a time, and my leave is very important to me. There is a time, it is only myself and my wife, and that's it. Everybody else, you can go to rest. And there is a time where it is a program that is me and the entire family. No phones, no anybody, it's just us. So we have those fully dedicated time space. But beyond that, every day, if I'm going on maybe a conference, for instance, at some point, and I feel, oh, my wife try and get some space as well, we go together. And that helps me because it is those mini trips that helps you to balance your work life. You cannot focus only on work, please. That also devalues you as a person. It lowers you, and I will definitely not recommend that to anybody. So it's not a 24-hour thing. Yeah. No, again, you need to work smart. This one I'm reacting to you. You need to work smart, not to work hard. There are some things that I do. I do reviews, for instance, because people know your capacity and what you bring to the table. They ask you to review reports, review certain things, and you are paid. And that you can do at weekends, at your time. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes I do speaking engagements and things like that. So again, you just have to balance everything, but you don't have to work 24 hours to live a good life. You just need to work smart, even as a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bankole, for that. Remember, you need to work smart as a teacher. It's not about the number of times you work. I would also want to please quickly recognize in our midst this afternoon, we have Dr. Adedayo, Distinguished Lecturer and Council Member, Trinity University, Lagos. We have Dr. Amao Kende, Distinguished Lecturer. We have Mr. James Kolawole, Member, Corona Schools Trust Council. We have Mr. Sunday Ojewi, the Lagos State Coordinator, Teacher Registration Council of Nigeria. And we also have some very distinguished participants, fellows of the Teach for Nigeria in our midst this afternoon. You all are welcome. I would want to also mention that the slides for this session will also be available at the close of today's session. And do want to request, obviously, the college. I would like to invite the chairman, local organizing committee, for the closing remarks, Mrs. Edith Omosun.
Thank you, Dr. Peter Bankole. This was very enlightening and educative too. I'd just like to say, for my own take home, I see what we need in Nigeria right now, my own opinion, and what Dr. Bankole has said. Not a total revamp of our curriculum, but being able to marry practicalities with our curriculum, so that when these students graduate, they are self-sustainable, they can get their own skills to work on and be able to fend for themselves, even without waiting on the government or hands out. Thank you very much, sir. I would also like to note here that in Corona College of Education as well, our programs is also tied to skills acquisitions for our NC program and for our professional diploma in education program. So our students are also open to learning other skills apart from teaching, so that they can also be able to help themselves aside from their teaching jobs. Thank you once again, sir. Our college is located at 25 Association Avenue, Ilukpeju, Lagos. Currently, our registrations are on for NCE program, the Nigerian Certificate in Education program, the Professional Diploma in Education program, the Professional Diploma in Early Childhood and Education program, and the Advanced Diploma in Educational Management and Leadership. Thank you very much once again, sir.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Edith Omosun. I would also want to invite a member of the LOC for the vote of thanks, Mrs. Chisometu.
Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. It really gives me immense pleasure to deliver this vote of thanks for this great event. I would like to appreciate our guest lecturer, Dr. Peter Bankole, for a beautiful lecture well delivered. We say thank you, sir, for honoring our invitation. And we've got to take home that we really have a whole lot to do as parents and teachers in the education sector. And we're still saying thank you very much, sir. I'd like to thank also the chairman, CSET Council, person of Dr. Roberts, Miebo CEO, Mrs. Adeyomi Adeshino, CSET Council members, Professor Odewumi and Dr. Lawal. We say thank you very much, sirs. Our provost, Dr. Olajumoke Mekiluwe, our registrar, Mrs. Joan Omole, and to the bossa, Mr. Adewale Shoremi, say thank you very much, sirs. Representative of the Vice Chancellor, Lagos State University of Technology, person of Dr. Ojodu, we say thank you. Mr. Ojewuyi of Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, academic colleagues from FC Akoka, Yaba College of Technology, University of Lagos, and Dr. Adedayo from Trinity University. We say thank you very much for honoring this invitation. Engineer Kunle Adebajo, a member governing board CSTC. We say thank you very much, sir, for honoring this invitation. And to our immediate past provost, Dr. Obiyan, we appreciate your presence here, sir. The Dean of Education, FC Yakoka, we say thank you very much, sir. I would also like to appreciate all our students for making our time to be in attendance. We truly appreciate this. And to all members of staff, we appreciate the teamwork in putting this up and making this function a grand success. To all attendees, we truly appreciate you. Without you all, this wouldn't have been a success. Thank you for honoring us, and we say God bless. We'll see you in the next series. That's a public lecture, series 6, and we hope to see you there once again. Thank you very much. Have a nice day ahead.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chisom, for that vote of thanks. Please, you can do well to follow us on all our social media accounts. We are on Instagram, Corona College of Education, also on Facebook. You can also visit our website on www.coronacollegeofeducation.edu.ng. I would like to invite the Dean, School of Education, Mr. Augustine Modi, for the closing prayer.
Shall we all close our eyes? In Jesus' name. Eternal King of Glory, we thank you for a day like this you have made possible. We appreciate you for the speaker. We appreciate you for all of us that have taken part in this thing. And we pray that your mercy will continue to be upon us. As a nation, we pray that all we have spoken here, suggested here, and have heard here should come to practicability in our education sector in Jesus' name. Father, we pray that you will continue to guide this nation aright, especially in the area of education, and give us an ability to go ahead to do that which will move this nation forward. For in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I didn't know that.